First of all, is it a surprise that Facebook is sort of holding its ground and doing this? And what are the implications for content in Australia?
I think it is a surprise, Heidi. I mean, Facebook had threatened to do this last September if the proposed legislation was enacted, but I'm not sure people really expected them to follow through with this threat, but they have. And today they've started restricting sharing of news on its service in Australia. So publishers' Facebook accounts haven't got any posts, and Australian users aren't able to post or share Australian content, and that would apply to global Facebook subscribers as well. They wouldn't be able to post and share Australian content. So I think it's caught the government on the hop, particularly when it looked like it was starting to make progress with Google, which of course is the other platform that the proposed legislation applies to. Google has taken a different path to Facebook, and they're cutting deals with publishers to compensate them before the law is passed.
Do we have any idea why Facebook is doing this and what they risk to lose in the Australian market by taking this more perhaps confrontational approach?
Facebook has always argued since this proposed legislation was I guess, disclosed, that really news provides very minimal economic gain. In fact, they said today when they made their announcement that they were stopping news being shared, that news is just 4% of the content that people see in their news feeds. So it's a small market, Australia, and of that small market, there's very little news. Facebook argue. And also they argue that their business model is different from Google in that publishers willingly post to Facebook. So Facebook argues that they were getting free traffic from Facebook back to their websites, and the proposed legislation was penalizing Facebook for content they didn't ask for in the first place. So different approach Facebook is taking for reasons that it says it's clear it has a different business model to Google. Having said that, Australian Treasurer Josh Frydenberg said today he'd spoken to Facebook Chief Executive Mark Zuckerberg just this morning, Australia time, and they've agreed to hold talks to see if there's a path forward. So the door seems to be still open to some kind of resolution, and it's not yet clear if these restrictions are a permanent fixture.
So, Angus, in terms of the Google 9 News deal, do we have more details about the terms of the deal, and does that essentially, settle this side of the fight?
Do you mean the News Corp deal, Heidi, or the 9 News? 9 News agreement.
News Corp deal.
Yeah, yesterday. The News Corp deal is a global agreement that Google has struck with News Corp, applies to global titles like Wall Street Journal as well as Australian publications. And News Corp, conspicuously, I guess, thanked the Australian government when it was announcing this deal with Google. So it's a multi-year compensation deal, the terms of which weren't disclosed. But that seems to really credit this legislation with bringing Google to the table before the legislation is enacted.